ever watched the Olympics and just went, wow, the speed, the flow, the grace, the sparkles, the musicality? I wish I could do that too. Well, today I'm gonna tell you step by step how you, yes, you watching right now, can also become a competitive figure skater with zero skating experience. Trust me, your girl herself did not even know how to skate forwards 5 years ago, and earlier this year won a gold medal in a US national level competition. Hello friends of the internet. If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. My name is Kathy and I'm a 26-year-old competitive figure skater living and training in New York City. You can also find me on Instagram where I post more skating tips and fun little bits of my own athletic journey there as well. When I was 20 years old, I was just in a really dark place and I really wanted to do something for me and for my own happiness and fulfillment, not to do something because it's a resume builder or because your parents or your friends want you to do it, but truly do something for me and for myself. And that was kind of how I found and fell into figure skating at a very late age. Late in air quotes. And I started off with zero experience. Nada. Like guys, I did not even know how to stop or skate forwards even, let alone backwards. But I worked my butt off over the last 5 years and recently I was able to capture the US Adult National title and the national gold medal for my event. So I'm living proof that anything is possible and I want to help you to realize your dreams. Your dreams are never too big, too small, or too stupid. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. With that said, I'm going to give you today the ultimate guide to transform yourself from a beginner figure skater with zero experience to a competitive figure skater. So let's dive right in. First, let's talk about the equipment you need to succeed. If you are committed to learning and eventually have the goal of becoming a competitive figure skater, I highly recommend that you shy away from getting rental skates and practicing in rental skates and automatically getting your own set of beginner figure skates. It doesn't have to be a very advanced pair or a very expensive pair to start, but anything is better than rental skates, and let me tell you why. Rental skates do not protect your ankles well, and depending on the fit can also cause certain damages to your feet, so they're not really made for practicing long term. They're really only to skate for fun for like 30-60 minutes. The blade often on those figure skates are also not often sharpened enough and will not allow you to learn the proper feeling of what it feels like to actually skate on an edge. So your blade has two edges, the outside edge and the inside edge. So the lack of proper equipment can really affect how fast you can learn skating and how you keep your ankles and feet healthy. My recommendation is I started off with the Jackson Mystiques, which I will link in the description down below. I literally bought them off of Amazon for like $120, and of course this was like 5 years ago because I recently went on a check and hello inflation, it is $180 now. The return on investment will definitely hit its break-even point soon. Around 1 year into my journey, I transitioned into a more intermediate model. I believe this one is called the Jackson Debut figure skate. About 2 years to 2.5 years into my skating journey, I transitioned to another intermediate skate, and that was the Adaeus Concerto skates, just because they worked a little bit better for me. I had those for about 2.5 years until recently this past year where I transitioned to my current skates, which is the Adaeus Ice Flies. And the current blades that I have attached to my Ice Flies are the John Wilson Gold Seal Revolution blades, which I've been quite liking. Before this, I had just a Jackson blade. I believe it was called the, what was it called? Oh my god, I'm forgetting. But I will link it in the description down below, but it was like an intermediate level blade. This is more of an advanced level blade. Find a in-store specialist or a skate shop near you where you trust the technician to provide recommendations specific to your level and to your foot shape and size. Here is a critical tip that you should not miss. When you first start off skating, even if you have the financial means and budget to do so, do not buy super advanced skates and blades immediately. You have to be a little bit patient. More expensive does not mean better for the point you are in your skating progression. Some of the more advanced boots are for people who either jump a crap ton or people who are jumping triples and quads, and they're really stiff to make sure that they have the critical ankle support needed. However, if you are just a beginner and still learning how to bend your knees and how to bend your ankles, having a boot that is too stiff can actually be counterproductive to your learning process. Another tip from a fellow beginner turned competitive figure skater is at the beginning, if you have a big fear of falling, which trust me, I do, others do, everyone does, think about potentially investing in just some crash pads or knee pads or anything like that. You don't look stupid if you wear that to the rink. It's for your own protection, especially if you have weak joints. I can also link some options in the description down below. There's ones you can put on kind of like shorts over whatever bottoms you're wearing, and there's also ones that are more like pads that you can can kind of just shove in your pants and kind of insert them. Alright, next big topics is coaching and lessons. If you want to be a competitive figure skater, I hate to break it to you, lessons are so critical for your progression and for your learning. If you never ever even stepped foot on the ice before, like me 5 years ago, I would highly recommend that before you sign up for your first lesson with a coach, whether it's a group lesson or a private lesson, spend a couple of weeks or maybe a week going to the rink to just try to skate and just feel it out. It doesn't matter if you're struggling, holding against the boards, holding against the walls, just get your feet a little bit under you to understand how your body is reacting to something new that you're introducing, because that will make the time that you do spend with your coach more productive, because skating lessons, I hate to break it, is very expensive. If you can, I would highly recommend you do a private one-on-one lesson with a coach instead of a group lessons. Group lessons are fine, times they're more financially viable. However, in my opinion, oftentimes group lessons can also be kind of quite pricey, but you're not getting the same level of progression and kind of a return on investment on your money and on your time. So personally for me, I would rather spend a tad bit more to get a better return on my investment. I cannot stress getting a good coach who has a good understanding of technique and most importantly is willing to work with you and your goals as a beginner figure skater or adult figure skater. Your coach has to understand that your body is different than that of a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 5-year-old child. And most importantly of all, this coach has to value your goals as importantly as you value your own goals. I've encountered a select number of coaches in my personal career, especially when I was a little bit more on the beginner side, of them just kind of, writing you off like, okay, she's an adult skater, or she's, started late in life. Just my standards for her are a little bit more lenient, or you just let things go, and they don't do as diligent of a job at looking at your technique and pushing you to be better. I would make sure that you communicate with your coach that you are doing this with the intention to be good, be better, and to compete. And if you would like your coach to be strict with you, let them know, because sometimes I feel like when coaching beginners, coaches are almost too scared to over push them. This also comes down to understanding what type of learner you are. Some people love more positive enforcement. Others, for me, who are psychotic, I personally like it when a coach is stricter with me because I feel like I'm really being challenged and pushed to be better every day. I also know that I work better with coaches who are a little bit more hands-on, who can truly help me feel what the right feeling is like to do the right technique. I am not someone who is a visual learner. So if you show me a video,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I have to feel the movement and what's correct with my own body in order for it to sink into my brain. And another question I get very often is the frequency of the number of times that you should get coaching in a given week. When I first started, I would recommend a once per week cadence, because when you're learning initially, you need a lot more time to practice yourself, to let things that you learn in your lesson kind of sink in. Sometimes taking too many lessons all at once is not only expensive, but not worth your time, because your body is not absorbing these new things fast enough for it to be worth it. As you progress in your journey, maybe 2 to 3 years down the line, maybe looking at 2 times per week, and then anything beyond that, maybe 2 to 3 times a week, if that is financially feasible for you. As you advance, it may be beneficial to work with a handful or a selection or a team of different coaches who all specialize at different things. There's coaches who are jump specialists, there's coaches who are spin specialists, there's choreographers whose sole priority and purpose is to work on the artistic side of your skating. So as you progress in that journey, the number of specialists and help you need gets a little bit more specific. And the last thing you may ask is, how do I find the right coach for me? I've gone through so many coaches that are just awful. If you go on a rink's website, all of these coaches have all of these accomplishments listed, and you have no idea what's actually good versus what's actually bad. And what I have learned is sometimes that the so-called credentials that the coaches put in their bio does not necessarily equate them to actually being a good coach. One of the best tips that I have to find a right coach is to make friends at the rink and getting recommendations that this coach actually does really care about their goals and has good technique. And the third step is building mind-body awareness when you practice. This is not really a tactical step, but something you should really just factor into every single time you step on the ice and practice. Skating, like I said, is one of those sports that's so difficult to learn without a coach because you really need someone from the outside perspective to view your skating and give you the proper critiques, because unlike a sport like dance when you can see yourself in a mirror, and when I see myself I know that like
I look ugly and I'm doing something wrong.
However, in skating, sometimes I can feel like I'm on the top of the world and I'm like, oh my god, I'm doing it, I'm doing this thing, and then you film it and you look at it and you're just like, what the fuck am I doing? I like look like a flailing noodle. So especially if you didn't grow up like me, I never did dance, never did gymnastics, never did any kind of artistic sport where you have to have a severe level of intricate nuance, mind-body connection. One thing I would highly recommend is filming yourself when you practice. Until I see it, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. The more you start building your mind-body awareness, the faster you're able to learn and pick out your own mistakes. If you start practicing and learning something the wrong way without feeling it and recognizing it, it can lead to bad habits, because once muscle memory is built, it can be very difficult to change. And the fourth step here is another sort of kind of built-in advice that I have to get through to you guys, is focus on your fundamentals. Do not fret or panic if when you first start off skating that you cannot do any of the cool and fancy tricks that figure skaters can do, like jumping or spinning. Because what is more important is the building blocks and the fundamentals that go into actually making the jumps and the spins great, and makes learning those tricks easier as well. Damn, with each passing year, I swear I just sound more and more like my mom. We are super eager to learn all the cool things, but we never want to practice the boring things, which is our skating skills, which is the fundamentals of everything. It's literally like building a house. If you don't have strong fundamentals, it will literally just all come crashing down and burning. I highly recommend that for your first year of training, you really focus and hone in on your skating skills. You can start to learn some basic spins and jumps here and there, but I promise you, if you work on your skating skills, you will not regret it, because when the time comes when you actually have to put together a competitive routine, you soon learn that in order for things to look good, in order for things to look the way you want it to look, which is what the Olympians are doing, is how you connect the cool things that you do in a competition routine or program. When you go compete, it's not just jump, spin, you're gonna have to find ways to get from A to B. There's gonna have to be choreography, skating in between, you're gonna have to be moving, and if your skating skills are bad, that is definitely going to show. And trust me, my skating skills are not my favorite, and it makes me wish that if I could go back in time, that I didn't learn any jumps or spins my first year. I would just be drilling crossovers and 3 turns and little things like that, because they matter so much. My motto is always learn things right from the get-go, because it's always so much harder to relearn something that you have already learned. Moving on to another big monster, testing. I know that word in itself is super intimidating. You're like, what do I mean? Like, what is testing? I love how every country just makes testing the most confusing thing to understand ever. Testing is the gateway to being able to compete. I'm gonna explain everything in terms of the system that we have here in the US, but I can imagine that other countries and other federations will also have something quite similar. In the US, we have a bunch of different levels that I will pop onto the screen right here, right now, and it also doesn't help that they keep changing the names of what these levels are called to make it extra confusing. 2 types of tests that you have to pass in order to compete at a specific level. One is called the skating skills test, or formerly known as moves in the field, and the second one is a free skate test. Okay, you're probably like, okay, hold up. What the hell is a skating skills test and what the hell is a free skate test? First of all, the skating skills / moves in the field test is a little bitch. Oh, I'm sorry, let me rephrase. The skating skill test checks for your ability to perform a certain set of moves and patterns on the ice, and most of those moves are skating skills related, so things like crossovers, your edges, stroking, spirals, and other stuff like that. So no jumps and no spins. The free skate test is when you skate a choreographic entire routine with a select set of elements required for your level in front of a judge, and you get scored whether you pass or not. The order in which you have to take these tests is you always, at each level, have to take the skating skills test first and pass it first before you can take its free skate equivalent. And you need both to be passed in order to compete. There are some super beginner lower levels that do not require you to test and you can just compete in those events. But for the most part, you do need a test to be able to compete at most competitions in the US. And to add on to additional complexity, there's 3 tracks offered in the skating skills test. So there is the standard track, there is the adult 21 plus track, and there is the adult 50 plus track. But if you have a US FSA membership, you can find all this information in your member portal on the website. So the standard track is open to anyone of any age and it has the strictest standards for passing. So that one's age agnostic. So personally for me, because I want a bit more of a challenge, I've been testing everything standard track, except for free skate, because that's a little bit different. However, there's also an adult 21 plus track, which is available to those 21 plus. The judging criteria are usually a little bit more lenient, and the set of moves that you perform for each level is also slightly different. And then we also have the third track of adult 50 plus, so obviously available to those 50 plus only, and those standards are even more lenient. For the free skate test, there's 2 tracks offered. There's also the standard track, and then there's the adult 21 plus track. There is no like 51 plus track. Everyone just kind of is looped into the kind of 21 plus category if you're adult. And I know I just touched upon membership, so let's do like a little side deep dive into that, because that's also something you need to understand before you can compete. In order to test and compete in the US, you need to be a USFSA member, which is just a membership that you have to pay for annually, and you also have to be part of a USFSA recognized club. So for me, because I live in New York, whenever I test and compete, I represent the Skating Club of New York. Usually when you buy your club membership, your club should offer a joint package where you can pay for the club membership and the US FSA membership together. Usually that's what most people do. It's the most cost-efficient way. However, if you don't want to be affiliated with the club, there's also another way you could be registered to compete. You can also register to be an individual member of the US FSA. Since we talked about how for the free skate test, you need to have a full choreographed program or routine. So the next step is I'm going to share with you how you need to put together a program. So if you're not familiar with skating terms, you may be like, what the hell is a program? I know everything in figure skating just has weird names, but essentially in our world, a program essentially just means a choreographed routine to music with a specific set of elements like jumps and spins. Every single level essentially has its own set of time requirement as well as element requirements. And you can find all of that on the US FSA website and the member portal once you are a member. So do note that if you're not a member, you actually don't have access to a lot of this information, which honestly, quite frankly, sucks. Like a lot of the publicly available information is actually outdated. If you're not quite a member yet, ask your coach. They can usually pull the requirements for you, because if they are a certified coach, they will also need a US FSA membership and ID. So they should have access to those resources if you don't have them quite yet. So most important factor in putting together a routine is of course understanding your requirements. The last thing you want to do is put together a routine that's not going to meet the requirements of your level and is going to be illegal, or you exceed the time limit. All of those things will have penalties, so make sure you follow the guidelines closely. What you put in a program is a function of what is required at your level, so work with a coach to figure that out, but also what is strategically best and put you in the best position when you go out and compete. And that looks differently for every single skater. And then the next question I get is, do I need a choreographer? It really depend on your goals and your budget. When you first started out, and when I first started out, I did not have a choreographer. Whenever I needed to put together a routine for testing, or I was going to compete in a local competition, I just had whatever coach I was working with at the time to help me put together a routine. For the most part, most coaches have some degree or understanding of musicality, and I think when you're first starting, that approach is fine. However, as you get more advanced and more competitive, I highly recommend working with a choreographer, because their specialty is understanding music, understanding musicality, and helping you connect all the elements required in your program in a beautiful way. Learning how to skate is one thing, but learning how to move and feel the music is a whole nother, it's like speaking a whole nother language. If you have the budget and means to do so, definitely hire a choreographer. But if you can't, I think for the first year or two, that should be okay. The next big hurdle I want to cover is registering and finding competitions, because dear Lord, sometimes even just competitions are hard to understand and find. Personally, when you start off, I would recommend looking for smaller competitions. It's less stressful. You need a lot of competition experience in order to start feeling that confidence. Typically, I would say look out for local competitions in your city or local competitions hosted by your club. And I would highly recommend doing those before doing anything on like the sectional and national scale. Once you're ready, feel free to look up competitions that most likely you'll have to travel to because they're a little bit larger in scale. If you're over 21, the official US Adult Competition Series includes US Adult Sectionals and US Adult Nationals. So depending where you live in the United States, you're part of a section. For me, I live in New York, so I'm part of the Eastern section. And then everyone competes at US Nationals. Do note that the levels offered at specific events may vary. For example, the minimum level offered at US Sectionals is the pre-bronze adult event. However, at Nationals, the minimal level is a little bit higher. It is the adult bronze event. So anything below adult bronze is not offered at Nationals. So keep that in mind as you think about signing up. The deadline to sign up for the US Adult Competition Series is usually around the end of January timeline. If you are under 21, you're qualified to skate in the Excel Series, which is a standard track series and does have certain slight differences in requirements, and you'll be able to find more information on the requirements for that program as well once you log in into your USFSA member portal. And the Excel Series also culminates to a national level event. Other than these larger competition series, there are also smaller competitions that definitely exist. You just kind of have to hunt them down a little bit more. It's not very clear when these competitions are announced and when you register for them. It's honestly a lot of times very word of mouth still, and it's not very organized. Everything that is sanctioned by the USFSA will go through the USFSA website and EMS, which is the event management system that the US uses to manage all the sanctioned competitions. Do note that some competitions don't get added until like the month before the competition date, so keep refreshing that and keep checking for competitions in your area, because you may not see one day and another day it might just pop up. Since we just talked about registering for competition, I want to discuss another important topic, which is the scoring criteria. You look at these judges sheets and you're like, I have no idea what I'm looking at, but let me explain. There's two major systems that we use in the US and also internationally, and that is IJS and 6.0. And there's major differences between the two, and depending on the event you sign up for and the competition that you're at, you might either have to skate IJS or 6.0, and if you're lucky at some competitions, you get a choice between the two. So IJS stands for International Judging System, and it is the same scoring criteria that is used internationally throughout for every level of figure skating competition out there, including the Olympics, including events in the Grand Prix Series, including US Nationals. A 6.0 is a more outdated system that used to be used internationally but is no longer used and retired. However, in many countries, in more local competitions or in certain competitions, 6.0 will still be the only offered choice for certain events. I can do an entire side-by-side comparison video to explain the differences between the two if you guys are interested, but from a very high-level perspective, IJS, some people argue, is a little bit more of an objective approach to scoring, or an objective method of scoring, because for each element you get a base value score, and depending on how well you executed that element, you get another score that tacks onto it, which is called your grade of execution, or GOE score. Then your performance quality and artistry is also scored in another score called your component score. So the summation of your component score and your technical score gets you your final total score. 6.0 is sometimes viewed as the more subjective method of judging, which is probably why it was retired internationally. Judges score your performance from a holistic perspective of how well they think you skated. So that includes everything from all of your jumps, your spins, your skating skill kind of all compiled together, and how they score you is they actually rank you against the other competitors in your event. Don't worry, when you sign up on EMS, it will definitely tell you what your event will be in, whether that is IJS or 6.0, so you can prepare in advance. Each judging type definitely has a different approach and strategy you need to take in terms of preparing for that competition. Definitely discuss that with your coaches. I'm happy to do a deep dive video on it. And the next thing I want to now discuss is practice. And most importantly, I want to discuss commitment and consistency. I would say the one thing that you have to be committed to do to transform yourself from a beginner to a competitive figure skater is to practice. If this is something you want to do, you can definitely achieve it, but you're not going to be able to achieve it if you go like once a week. That's not going to cut it if you want to do this competitively. I'm just going to be very upfront and honest with you that this takes a lot of commitment, dedication, and consistency. So a couple of tips I have here is one, practice like how you want to compete. This is so important because a lot of the times when we go skating and we go practice, we just do the element by itself. However, the first thing you should know is that the biggest difference between practice and competition is that in competition, you have to do it all together with the connecting transitions, all to music, with added pressure, so that feeling is very different. So I encourage you, if you have a program already choreographed, practice like how you're going to compete. Don't just go into it from an easy entrance. Go into it the same way that you plan choreographically to practice that pattern. Because if you don't practice like how you compete, you cannot just expect to show up at the competition and be able to be good at doing these things. And the second thing I want to say is good people judge you by the quality and how hard you work rather than your skill. I think especially at the beginning, it's very easy to feel imposter syndrome, to feel like you don't belong, like this feels weird, I look so awkward, I look so cringy, I'm a beginner. Commitment and showing your hard work and consistency by showing up is going to be what earns you the respect from everyone at the rink. That is something I've seen with even Olympic level coaches. If you show these coaches that you're committed and you want this, for the most part, if they're a good supportive coach and person that cares about your growth and progress, they will value that with respect. They will not value you as a skater on whether or not you can do a triple axel or not. And the last thing I want to touch upon in practice is practice frequency, because that is another question that I get a lot. I will say that when I first started skating, I skated probably like 6 times a week, just because there was so much for me to learn and it was just so slow. Everything was just so slow. I just had to do so many reps of something in order to get it under my belt. Now I train about 4 to 5 days a week, about 2 hours at a time, because things I'm doing is a little bit more rigorous and I do need to build in adequate time off ice to do recovery as well as to do off ice conditioning, which actually leads to the next topic on my list. The transitions are really just planning themselves today. The next step you need to know is that you must do off ice training in order to be a competitive figure skater, because it is just what your body needs to maintain that level of rigor in what you put it through in skating, and to make sure you have longevity in the sport. If you really love doing this, you should take care of your body to make sure that you can do this for as long as you can. So let me tell you the 4 big things that you have to cover up on, and that is strength, cardio, flexibility, and mental training. Strength is so important. The crazy stuff we do in skating require an immense amount of strength to be able to do without injuring yourself. One of the biggest mistakes that I've seen people make is they think that just by going skating, they're strengthening the right muscles that they need because they're using them, right? However, that's really not quite the case. The load that you have to put on those muscles in order to get it to do the right thing in the moment of is not actually achieved by doing the thing, but actually achieved by lifting weights, doing pilates, doing resistance training off the ice. I've seen a lot of people struggle thinking that they need to work harder on the ice because they can't hold XYZ spin position, but let me tell you, half of that equation is stuff that you can take care of at the gym or off ice or just at home, because strength is a big factor, especially in the spins, in holding those difficult positions. Next we have is cardio. Contrary to popular belief, skating is crazy cardio. Being able to do a full competitive routine from beginning to end, I describe it like running a sprint, doing an intense HIIT workout, doing hot yoga, and doing like all of those things combined and all at once. Like, it's truly an awful feeling, if I'm gonna be honest. Training your heart is very, very necessary to be successful in competition. And then, of course, we have flexibility. So as you've seen in skating, we have to do a bunch of crazy shit and hold crazy positions. So flexibility is also insanely important to make sure that you don't injure yourself, and you can even just do some of these moves that are required in skating. Make sure you always work on the consistency of your stretching. And the last one is kind of the dark horse of it all, and that is mental training. Especially if you want to be a competitive figure skater, that part is so important. You want to make sure that you're not just training your body, but you're also training your mind to operate at such a high level of performance, because a lot of things factor into when you compete, whether it's nerve, being able to just manage your heart rate, calm your breath. Mental training is severely important. Meditation, all important things you have to incorporate as well. I'll include a fifth thing for a bonus: lifestyle habits. Have to pay attention to your sleep, have to pay attention to your diet. It is so important to get enough sleep. As soon as I don't get enough sleep, I can feel it so hard through my training. You just show up and you're so exhausted that you can't perform to the level that you want to. Diet is another important thing. You want to make sure that you're eating all the necessary macronutrients that you need, and you want to make sure you're eating enough, and especially eating enough protein. That is so important in making sure you're building the right muscles that you need in order to be successful at skating and in order to not get injured. The worst thing for a figure skater to do is undereat your macronutrients and not being able to sustain the high level of performance that you do need in order to perform the things that you have to do. Another thing I do want to discuss is finances. It is the unfortunate reality that realizing a dream for some may be more difficult than others, but I truly personally believe that if there is a will, there is a way. If it helps, personally for me, I really struggled financially when I first started figure skating. I was a broke college student with a single mom who was an immigrant and really had to just work 3 part-time jobs in order to afford skating and also to live in college. I literally had probably the most awful cheap diet ever. I literally took public transport like every day for an hour and a half just one way to be able to get to a rink where I can get coaching and help for my skating. So to everyone struggling financially with skating, I get you completely. And that is the one downside to this sport. To address this, I already made a separate video on my channel about how to help you budget for figure skating if that's something that you do want to pursue, either for fun or competitively. Check that out. I'll link it in the description down below if you want to deep dive into the finances of figure skating and how you can best make skating affordable for you. And the last thing that I want to leave you with today is I want you to sit down with yourself and ask yourself, is this something that I'm really doing for me, myself, and something that I truly feel like I will be fulfilled by? In order to be successful at something, you have to truly enjoy it and feel fulfillment from it. It has to be your dream and not somebody else's. I also want you to understand the commitment level and the sacrifices required for you to climb that journey from transforming yourself from an absolute beginner to a competitive figure skater. Being a competitive athlete oftentimes involves a lot of sacrifices in many dimensions of your life, whether that's social sacrifices or financial sacrifices, and you have to be ready for all of those. With that said, never be discouraged to not start. Never be embarrassed by the power or the strength or the grandiose of your own dreams. And I promise you this journey will be a challenging one, but a fulfilling one. And me, this channel, and everything that I create is here to support you through all of that. So if you're progressing along your figure skating journey and would like to see more figure skating resources like this video, I post a lot of videos like this that are educational, as well as just sharing my own training experiences and competition experiences here on this channel. So please like, comment, and subscribe. It really allows me to be able to create more content like this for you and for everyone else who wants to start figure skating. New video drops on this channel every Saturday at 9:30 a.m. ET, and leave a comment below on what you would like to see from me next, and your next idea may just be the next video I make. And you may watch this video and just be like, okay, competitive figure skating, not for me. I just want to do it recreationally. I will link 2 more videos that I made in the description down below that offer a variety of different levels of information for the level of skating that you do want to pursue. Last reminder that you will face obstacles and roadblocks in this journey, but always keep going and always keep your dreams alive. And I know that you can do it. Sending you all lots of love and best of luck on your own journeys. Till next time, bye guys.
Boy, your honey sickly sweet keeps me coming